Amazing. So I'm going to share my screen to start the presentation. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. And all right. So I welcome everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who registered for this webinar today. As you can tell, the topic is about microbiome. And we have the wonderful Kristen joining us from My Microbiome. A lot of you are aware of who Kristen is, and a lot of you are aware of obviously what a microbiome is, but not really sure how do we connect it to, personal care? How do we connect it to our formulations? And how do we connect it to communicate to our consumers? So just a little bit about myself. My name is Rita Sellers. I am the founder and director and chief chemist of pH Factor. pH Factor is a development company. We formulate and help a lot of customers in the training of their products, in understanding obviously the science behind their product. We help them into launch. We connect them with a lot of manufacturers and help them with what they can and can't claim. But one of the things that we love to do is be able to connect our customers and our industry together. And where we see that there's a really exciting trend or information that needs to happen, we will try and put a webinar together. It's probably a little bit old school. I know a lot of people do podcasts these days, but I kind of like the webinar because it allows us to connect live with the industry experts. And today we have Kristen, who is our industry expert. Kristen founded My Microbiome, and she's on our screen at the moment. And I'm just going to pull up, my apologies, because it was on my old webinar. Kristen, would you like to describe yourself for a little bit while I
Yes, so Rita, again,
sorry everyone.
thank you for having me today. So I'm really happy to be here and to spread the word about the microbiome and about how to address the microbiome in the cosmetics industry. I'm a microbiologist by learning. I founded My Microbiome together with my partner Tanya, who's a web designer, and she knows about the business and IT and everything around, and I'm the scientist. And we started with building an information platform up around the microbiome because we thought it's an important topic to be spread around the world. And on top of that, it kind of developed when we dive deeper into the industry and into the microbiome space. We found that it's necessary actually to create something like a certification, because there's no such thing out there that is kind of giving brands the security and the information how their products perform on the microbiome of the skin. And there were already like claims out there in 2019 around the microbiome, but without like seeing any data around that. And that is how the idea came up of developing a certification. So I was standing in the lab and like putting all the microbes together, and it was really small in the beginning. And by now we have over 100 clients worldwide. Also from Australia, we have a registered certification mark, but I will talk about that later. And it's exciting. I love this topic and could talk about it forever.
It's very exciting. And I know you've published a lot of your work, obviously some patents as well. You've got a patent, you've just recently were at the New York Suppliers event. Am I right? You had the presentation there as well?
No, we don't have patents, but we have a proprietary methodology in the for the testing.
Yeah.
Which is we developed it, which is not there already, but it's microbiology method, so we cannot patent it, but it's very unique and tricky to perform, let's say like this.
Yeah.
But we have certification marks registered all over the world, which is also unique for the microbiome space.
Amazing. I'm just going to let some people in. Bear with me. Admit all. All right, I think I've joined everyone. Awesome. So I'm just going to quickly go through the agenda of what we're going to go through today. It's going to be about an hour. Can everyone hear? Yeah. So we're going to be about an hour. I'm just going to do a quick overview of the microbiome industry, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kristen, and she will present human microbiome. She'll go into skin microbiome, scalp, which is such a huge trend at the moment. And the bigger trend that we're seeing right now, we have so many clients asking for it, is the vaginal microbiome. Then Kirsten's going to go through the actual certification process, the claims, and we're going to open it up to some Q&A. So please have all your questions. Kristen, do you mind if a question comes up during the presentation? Are you okay if someone puts their hand up to ask the question?
Yeah, sometimes it's even easier if we are at a specific topic.
Okay,
We can
awesome.
discuss
So ask
directly.
your questions as we go. So just put your hand up, and then you can unmute yourself and ask the question to Kristen. So that's good. All right, so I just wanted to give some stats because I wanted to show the importance of microbiome. And I know a lot of you, obviously you've joined today because you know how important it is, but we all know our beauty industry is sitting at 11.2 billion at the end of this year. It will sit at 11, probably more than that, I should say. And when we look at the microbiome market, it's sitting at the end of last year, it was valued at 500 million. So it's a pretty decent chunk of the beauty industry, and one that we just really need to pay attention to and be able to understand it more so we can formulate, manufacture, and communicate the right messages to our consumers. And a cool fact, so when you Google skin microbiome, 93 million hits comes up on Google. So you can tell that people are searching for it. So we know consumers are searching for it, and we're searching for answers for it. So from the Euromonitor, the claims around, probiotic and skin probiotic is also on the rise. So you can see from the Euromonitor that there's a huge rise in what we're seeing with the amount of products on the market being launched. It's just growing year on year. So it's a great space to be in, and we're really excited to have Kristen here. I'm going to hand it over to you, Kristen. I'm going to mute myself. And like I said, if anyone has any questions during the presentation, please just put your hand up and unmute yourself and ask the question. Thank you again, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I'm sharing my screen. I hope everyone can see it now. So today I'm going to talk about the microbiome in personal care, and I would like to start continue from what Rita just said, that it's the microbiome topic is a topic to stay in the industry. And I just would like to show you some quotes of a webinar that was held at the beginning of 2023 by the IFSCC.
If I put this on here, we can both listen to it. Yeah?
Can you hear us, Lucy? Okay, so yeah. So the key messages out of this webinar were that it's a trend. It's not a trend, but it's a topic that is here to stay, because we know that the microbiome is important for our overall health, also for skin health, and also that the customers have now understood that it is important to look for the microbiome if they want an intact skin barrier. And the other huge topic is actually that it's not enough to change the formulas with some specific ingredients, but to really do the testing, because the words or the topic science washing has also become a discussion, actually, because of course there's a lot of science claiming out there without the necessary data behind. So this is where we step in and provide the data that is necessary to make certain claims. So, but first of all, let's dive deeper into the topic of the skin or the human microbiome, because everything is connected. It's not only the skin microbiome, but I would like to talk about the microbiome as such, first of all. So it's already starting to get complicated when we talk about the definition of the microbiome, because it's a controversial discussion that is still going on between scientists, but they're more or less agreeing on the definition that it is the genetic material of all microbes that live in and on our bodies, but you have to keep in mind that we have a lot of different microbiomes. It's not only one, because we have different ecosystems on our bodies, but I will go into that later. And it's also including the theater of activities between those microbes and us as the host. So it's including the molecules that are present, bacteriocins, but also cell-free DNA, which means also dead microbes, or viruses, which are not live microorganisms per definitions. So, but the most, or the biggest amount of microbes we find in our body are bacteria with 95%. Number-wise, we are more or less equal, like half human cells, half microbiota. And maybe it's interesting to know the difference between the terms microbiome, which is really the genetic content and the theater of activities, and the microbiota are the cells, the bacteria and the fungi, which you talk, and this is being confused a lot even by scientists. And what is really interesting is that those microbiota contribute genes to us, and it is 150 times more that we actually have human genes. And these genes, you have to imagine, they are giving us tools that we need to function, that we need our body to have to function in a proper way. Just an example, in the gut, we have hundreds of enzymes to digest carbohydrates that are delivered by the gut microbiome. And we have just around, I think, 15 or so enzymes that are delivered by our own genes. So we can have a kind of an imagination how important the microbiome is for our survival. So we wouldn't literally be able to survive without it. And the functions of it are, as I said, the breakdown of nutrients, but also it's stimulating the immune system. So it's working very close with it when there's danger coming by pathogenic invaders, but it's also interacting strongly with it. It's educating it, so not to overreact against its like the own microbiome and other stressors from the outside, which are not stressors. But it's also literally occupying the body space against pathogenic invaders. So there's actually, when they're coming in, there's no space for them to grow on that specific site. And it's also helping us synthesizing specific nutrients like vitamins. And it's also shaping our body's physiology, like the pH. It's contributing to the sebum production, but also to humidity. And as I said, we have a lot of different microbiomes. And they are very different in their diversity and their colonization patterns. We have like the maropharynx area, which contains around 600 strains. On the skin, we have a high diversity, although it's not as densely colonized as the gut, but the diversity is similar, but with, of course, different microbes than in the gut. With around 1,000 microbes on the skin. In the orogenital tract, we have less diversity due to the very specific environment. And then in the stomach, it's even lower because it's very acidic, and then not many microbes that are able to thrive there. And in the gut, we have around the same as for the skin, around 1,000 microbes, but more densely colonized than the skin. And it's all connected. So we have a gut-skin axis, we have a gut-brain axis, we have a gut-brain-skin axis. And every time we want to like kind of modulate something in the microbiome, we should always think about that axis. So if you want to have better skin, it's not necessarily the best idea to apply a topical cream, but maybe it's even better to work through the gut and through the diet. And yeah, and there's a lot of correlations to diseases. So with every disease that we find actually, and that is being investigated in correlation to the microbiome, we see changes in the microbiome, but the tricky part is to understand what exactly are the mechanisms behind it. But we know that the microbiome always plays a part. If it's because the environment is changing and then the microbiota are changing, or we have an external influence and that makes the microbiota change, that is then reflecting on our body. And something that we have or why I have this slide on, is that to make you understand that in our civilization, we have lost a lot of diversity. And if you look at the graph, this is showing the diversity of different uncontacted American Indians. So the green line you see here, it's the highest, showing the highest diversity is coming from the Yanomami tribe. And then there's other tribes in the US. And then the yellow line is for US, the diversity of US, like Americans that are, I don't want to say civilized, but they are living in that industrialized world. And so what is also interesting is that it was found that the Yanomami, for example, they have an outer layer of microbes on their skin, which is like a biofilm that everyone in the industrialized world doesn't have anymore, because it's just washed away. If you just have one shower, it's gone. But this layer would be perfect for us to have, because it's protecting us from everything in the environment, even from UV light. And but we just don't have it because we have the lifestyle we have. And what is also interesting has been found that although the Yanomami don't have or didn't have any contact with antibiotics, it has been found synthetic genes for antibiotic resistance have been found in their microbiome, which means that antibiotics are spread around the world via the water and environment and soil and so on, which also reach those communities. So we have to be really careful with the medication we use and how we where it is ending up in the end. So as I already said, due to the life we live currently, we are facing a dysbiosis, which means our microbiome is out of balance. We don't have the microbiome anymore we should have if we would live the way we're supposed to live outside in the nature, very close to nature. But it's easy to think of it like, if you want to do something good for the microbiome, you just have to go back to and think about how it should be. Like, how would we live if we wouldn't be industrialized? So the best thing is to be outside a lot, to be in the healthy nature and not so much inside, to do not wash as much. I know the Indians don't want to hear this. So if it's possible, like, just reduce everything you additionally put to your body, try to eat healthy. The processed food we eat is really destroying our gut microbiome. We eat way too much sugars. What also is influencing the microbiome development is the cesarean sections that are constantly on the rise, because the baby's not facing the right microbes during the birth. That is the initial seeding of the baby gut and skin. And we are cleaning ourselves and the environments constantly, so we could look in reducing that a little bit. And of course, taking antibiotics and other medications is, of course, also having an effect on the microbiome. So when using antibiotics, we should be really aware of it and talk to our physicians to make sure it's really necessary at this very moment, because I know, especially in Germany, they're still very fast prescribing antibiotics, even if it's a virus infection, which doesn't make any sense because it's only working on bacteria. So the result of this westernized world we live in is that we have a lot of issues that we only see in the westernized world due to our lifestyle, and which is a lot of allergies, obesity, IBD syndromes, but also depression, Alzheimer, and it's all connected. So it's really important to take care of our microbiome. And what I also wanted to point out for you to understand that when working with your products with the microbiome, that we have to be aware that the science is really not there yet. So we know that the microbiome is important, but we don't know a lot about it. So the ideal case would be that we know which microbiota have which functions and why, and what are they contributing to us. Because the problem is that my microbiome might be very different to your microbiome, but still for me, it's the perfect microbiome, and for you, it's the perfect microbiome, because we just have different microbes that can have the same function. And the science until now is mainly looking at microbes, at the bacteria, and what is there, but not what it is doing. And on top of that, they're using a technique which is called 16S rRNA sequencing, also called next generation sequencing. Everyone's talking about it. It's hyped. and everyone's looking for it, but it is actually not the best method to look at the microbiota and the microbiome and to understand what is happening, because the method of sequencing is not going enough into depth, because we have different, like, it's not looking at the strains, but only at the family or at the genuses or the species level. And we would have to go way down. Like it's like you're looking at the zoo and you're saying, okay, there's vertebrates, but you don't really look if it's a giraffe or if it's a monkey, and that it's just looking at like, okay, there's vertebrates. And that's how the analyzing methods are still working. It is improving, but we don't have the data yet that we need to really understand what is going on. So just an example, everyone knows Staph epidermidis. It's a common Sulfactin microbe on the skin. We need it, but there's different strains. The one strains are beneficial for us, but there's other strains that can even be pathogenic, and we don't want that. But the analyzing methods don't find those differences. Or for C. acnes, it's also very interesting that when we have acne, like C. acnes is the most abundant strain on our skin, but there's different C. acnes strains. And when we have acne, there's a shift between those C. acnes strains, and the pathogenic C. acnes strains are overabundant, and the healthy ones are reduced. And this is also something we need to know when we look at acne and have a microbiome analysis. So just to make you aware of this, that we are still not very far with our science, but we know that we have to look for it. So I would like to go more in depth for the skin microbiome and the skin itself, which is the environment for the skin microbiome, has around 20 square meters. And just if you look at all the invaginations, at the pores and the follicles, and this is all colonized, like with the follicles, the pores are mainly colonized areas of our skin. On the surface of the skin, you don't even find as much microbes. And what you also have to know is that our skin is varying greatly in pH, temperature, humidity, sebum production, and so on. That's why we have a lot of different ecosystems, even on our skin. And just number-wise, we're colonized with around 1 million microbes per square centimeter. And it is, like I said, with the functions, it has the function to occupy the body space, so there's no pathogenic invasion possible. It is contributing to the strengthening of the skin barrier by inducing the formation of ceramides by the skin. It is releasing bacteriocins to actively act against pathogenic invaders, but it's also producing vitamins and other nutrients, and again working strongly with the immune system. And the main microbes we find there is, as I said, Cutibacterium acnes, Staphylococcus epidermidis, Corynebacteria, Streptococci, so different Streptococci, different Staphylococci, and also fungi, like the most abundant fungi are the Malassezia species. If you look at the scalp microbiome, you have to, it's probably, you know all that, but it's an extension of the skin. You can look at it as it is like skin, but it's very more densely not colonized, but more dense. We have more hair follicles, of course, and they are connected with sebaceous glands. So we have a lot of sebum on the scalp, and the environment is humid and oily. If we have a lot of hair, it's protecting our scalp from the UV. The pH of the scalp is very similar to the skin, but the hair is highly acidic. So this is also something you have to keep in mind when developing products. And yeah, the problem with the scalp microbiome, of course, it's even, the science is even younger than for the skin microbiome, so it's not yet well characterized, but we know a little bit. We have, like, you have to imagine that every follicle can be differently colonized by microbes. Like, it is kind of a lot of islands that you have on your scalp, and the follicle is also differently colonized than the scalp surface. We see a lot of fungal diversity, mainly Malassezia species, but the overall diversity on the scalp is lower than on the skin. And yeah, also here the pH levels, temperature, moisture, and sebum have a impact on the colonization pattern by the microbiome. And yeah, the Malassezia species we mainly find there are Malassezia restricta, globosa, and furfur, and the mostly abundant bacteria are Godibacterium acnes, Staphylococcus epidermidis, and Staphylococcus capitis, and they're also protecting us against infections. They have a function in hair follicle regeneration. They are stimulating the body to create keratin, also involved in the sebum production, of course, and again, immune system also here. So just for a few examples, what is happening in the microbiome at specific conditions. So there we have seborrheic dermatitis, and we know about scalp psoriasis. For dandruff, we have a little bit more data, and we know that there's a shift in the ratios between Staph epidermidis and P. acnes or C. acnes. Staph epidermidis is going up and C. acnes is going down in the microbial dandruff. And restrictor is, Malassezia restrictor is also going up, and Malassezia globosa is going down. So we can like look at those microbes and see if we see changes there. Alopecia areata, we know that C. acnes is going up. And but you already see here that it's not actually about bad and good guys, but it's rather about the balance between those microbes and how they are growing, and how if they're overgrowing the others and reducing, and because their functions is the most important part, and if they have over functions, then we have a problem. And if we look at anti-dandruff shampoos, we know that they're mainly working antifungal, which is not the ideal solution because we need those fungi, but they're just out of balance. And this is just an example of one test we performed in our laboratory with a product for the scalp. We have 2 Malassezia species and 3 bacteria, and we see that very often that a product is killing all the microbes, but leaving the Malassezia alone, like killing all the bacteria and leaving the fungi alone. And this is also, of course, not what we want. So we need a product that is balancing or leaving everything in peace. So that I would like to talk about the vaginal microbiome. Specifically in Australia, we get a lot of requests for lubricants and sexual wellness products. So I thought this would be an interesting topic in this webinar. And yeah, so we see still a lot of tabooization of the topic in the westernized world. And I really was excited when I saw this article in Vogue America, and was a really extensive article about the vaginal microbiome. And yeah, I would recommend everyone to read this one if they're interested in the vaginal microbiome topic. And yeah, if we look at the vaginal microbiome, forget everything I said before, because here we have a very low microbial diversity. It's very specific, very unique. The environment is very acidic, and we need that to keep this low microbial diversity. We are ideally mainly colonized by lactobacilli, which are the ones that keep the pH low. But so the analysis has shown that there's various community state types, which are each dominated by a specific microbe. In most cases, it's Lactobacillus. In some, there's community state type 4, which is devoid of Lactobacillus, and which is also more prone to fall into dysbiosis than the Lactobacilli dominated community state types. The strongest state type is number 1, because Lactobacillus crispatus is the strongest lactic acid producer of all lactobacilli. Yeah, this low acidity in the vagina is protecting the vaginal environment against pathogenic invaders such as Gardnerella vaginalis or Candida, Prevotella or Atobium. And the growth of lactobacilli in the vagina is strongly connected to the estrogen levels in our body, because estrogen is leading to the accumulation of glycogen in the vaginal epithelium, which is being metabolized by lactobacilli to form lactic acid. And once we have less estrogen, we have less glycogen and then less nutrients for lactobacilli. This is a cascade that is going down. Like the less estrogen we have, the higher the pH in the vagina and the more problems we might face. But it's of course individually from person to person. So we have external and internal influences on the vaginal microbiome, of course. Medication like antibiotics can have an influence on the, and probably every one of us has faced this problem, to get a fungal infection after antibiotics intake, but also contraceptiva, and very careful, also in India, with baths and showers in the vaginal area, because in the vaginal area, you don't need any soap. It's a self-cleansing mechanism, and everything you add there will harm the microbiome and will lead to problems. So we don't just need it. And of course, I know there's other, but I think it's being reduced, like steaming and douches, and this is the killer. You don't do that. Yeah, and then of course, sexual activity is having an influence, and the clothing we wear. So if we wear a lot of synthetic clothing, very, very tight, it has an influence on the microenvironment, and then can also have an effect on the microbiome. And as I said, hormonal changes have an effect on the microbiome. The diet and diabetes also has shown to be influential. The microbiome itself influences a lot of stages in the healthy woman development. It already starts with the fertility. It's interesting that the environment in the vagina must be low in order for the sperm to survive. So they need this acidic environment as well to be able to survive throughout the time they need until they reach their goal. And it's also important for the healthy development of the fetus, so that there's no infection during pregnancy and for the successful pregnancy, but also has an influence on preterm birth and then later on the microbiome development of the newborn. And if we look at the baby side, the lifestyle and the nutrition of the mother also has an influence on the development of the baby's microbiome later on, because it's already containing all the metabolites from the mother. During birth, as I said already, there's a difference between cesarean section and natural birth, because either the baby is facing the vaginal microbiome and also the gut microbiome when it's coming through the birth canal, or it sees the skin microbes first and the hospital microbes when coming through cesarean section. But what's even more important is that has been shown that in the very strong or much stronger influence after birth we have during nutrition. Ideally, the mother's milk would be the best for the development of the child's microbiome. And if this is not possible, donor milk would also be a good solution for that. And I forgot to say that during cesarean section, the application of vaginal swabs is also helping to mirror the natural birth. So we have a lot of, we as women have a lot of changes during our lifespan. We have, like in the infancy, we don't yet have the vaginal microbiome as we have it as adults. It's only popping in when the estrogen levels go up during the puberty, and then the lactobacilli thrive in the vaginal area. Then during pregnancy, the estrogen levels go up. We have even more lactobacilli, and then it's going down again after pregnancy and further down during menopause. So that is, yeah, also very strongly connected with the brain, like estrogen and brain interaction, and also the microbes have an influence here. So, but we also see a change during our monthly cycle. So from day 0 to the period, the lactobacillus, when the estrogen goes up, the lactobacilli go up, and then it drops after the menstruation. So all about the microbiome. I'm finished with that. Now I would like to dive deeper into the certification and what we are doing. We are, like the idea of the certification is that we test everything in a standardized way in the laboratory. And the idea is that we don't want to see any influence of products or ingredients on the specific microbiome that we look at. And we are working with the most abundant microbes that everyone in the world has on the skin. So the lactobacilli for the vagina, for example, or the Cutibacteria, Corynebacteria, Staphylococci for the skin, but in different ratios and different compositions for the different body areas. And we can be sure that those microbes are abundant on everyone's skin in the world or area. What we do is we first of all check the microbial quality for the so that there's no contamination in the product. We have two co-cultures in the balance in the diversity. In the balance, we have a co-culture of one good and one bad guy. Usually it's Staphylococcus epidermidis and Staph aureus. We grow them together at the product, and the product should not shift the growth towards the bad guy Staph aureus. In the diversity, we have the microbes that we have selected for the respective body area, put them all together, like for the face, for example, it's 7 different ones, have them in the liquid co-culture and add the product. And then we monitor the growth of each individual microbe. In the end, we can distinguish every microbe and see which ones grow more or less, or ideally they didn't change in comparison to the control that we always have running along. And in the vitality test, it's a plate assay where we look at each microbe individually, plate it on an agar plate, add the product on top, and then see if the product is killing those microbes or not allowing them to grow further. And then we have developed different standards for the skin. For the skin, it's 3 different standards: for sebaceous, dry, and moist areas; for the scalp, for infant skin; for the vaginal tract, for foot, mouth, and nose; and just newly released the standard for vulvovaginal area, so which is like the outside, and we still have to take the vaginal microbiome into account. And if the product has passed the certification, they get a bunch of data and graphics. There's different seals we have. They can all be used in different, like the small one here can be used in different colors. They are registered as certification mark in 40 countries. And this is the only seal and certification that is registered as a real certification mark in the microbiome space. Just because we get these questions a lot, why don't we test in vivo? And I just want to explain that briefly, why it doesn't make sense for a certification to do the in vivo testing. I'm not saying it's not making any sense, but you have to be very clear about what you want to see if you do in vivo testing. Although in vivo testing is closer to real life, you're still kind of in a bubble because you are looking at a certain amount of people. They are only using the product for a certain time. And this is also not reality because we're using more products during the day than just one. Then a big problem from what I see is that there's a very low sensitivity because, of course, the microbiome, after we apply a product and it's kind of having an effect, it is able to recover. But the more products you add and over the longer time, the more influence it will have overall on the skin microbiome. So in the in vitro setting, where the microbes are they are naked in front of the product, they are not protected in a biofilm or in a pore. So if there's an effect by the product, you can see this in that test. And of course, the in vivo testing is not standardizable because everyone has a different microbiome. And the environment is not controllable, it's not standardizable. And what we see a lot in those in vivo tests, that you get a lot of data, and in the end, which I also explained before, you don't know what to do with those data. And it's cost intensive, it's not scalable, and it's time consuming. But also for the certification, the most important part is also it's the sensitivity and the standardization, which is not possible with in vivo testing. And what should we consider when formulating microbiome friendly? Like use ingredients that are kind of not having an antibacterial property. Use qualants. We have seen those are great. Neutral fats, carbohydrates, certain amino acids, peptides, but they can also be antibacterial. So be careful with that. But in the end, it's important that you know that you're using mild ingredients. You use just what you need. You can use preservatives, but you have to balance them in the right way to use the least amount you need to make it a safe product, but not overdose too much to still make it microbiome friendly. And it's even not necessary to use, like, it's up to you, but it's not getting better or worse if you use natural preservatives versus the synthetic ones. It's really about the concentration, about the dosing. And for surfactants, I would also be very cautious because these have shown to have a very strong effect on the microbiota. So if you develop a wash or a cleanser, make sure to use mild surfactants and also try to use the lowest possible concentration. And that's actually the easiest way to get a microbiome-friendly formulation. And this is just an excerpt of the brands we work with. We work with over 100 brands, ingredient suppliers, and brands. And just a few words about the microbiome space in the cosmetics area. We have a lack of regulation and we need to be careful. And there has been a lot of lawsuits already because of the misleading claims. And the most misleading claims are actually that a product is enhancing, improving, balancing, nourishing a microbiome, because this is something we just cannot say, because we have those different microbiomes for every person. We don't know if a change of the microbiome is good or bad. So it's really a claim that we should avoid. Claims are usually still based on the addition of pre, pro, or postbiotics, and there's a lot of misconception also around the term probiotics, which are supposed to be live microbes in the product that confer a benefit to or a cosmetic benefit in that case, to the host. And the FDA found that 90% of so-called probiotics are not probiotics, but rather postbiotics, because the bacteria are just not live. Then changing certain ingredients that potentially harm the microbiome is a good idea, of course, but still you have to do the testing. And pH adjustment is also one thing that companies change and then claim to be microbiome friendly. So what I would recommend to do when claiming around the microbiome is that it does no harm to the existing microbiome, that it's respecting the microbiome and doesn't change. You can do or work with claims like improving if you have a certain condition and you can improve that condition. But there you have a very specific endpoint you look at. For example, for acne, as I said, you are specifically reducing those C. acne strains, and then you can say, okay, your product has an effect, and you can show that in vivo that the eczema, the acne is being reduced, and then you can make a nice claim out of it. But be really careful also with, but you know that better than I, to not go into the therapeutic area. And then, of course, for claim substantiation, it's always necessary to do the testing and not assume by also ingredient suppliers that say, okay, this and this ingredient does that and that, and then just take over the claim, do the testing if it's with us or another institute. Yeah. I'm going to skip that. So yeah, and the other side is, of course, the awareness among customers is rising. They do have that holistic view on our skin health. So cosmetics should not only like make us beautiful, but they also should make the skin healthier. And the microbiome is a big part of it. So in a summary, we believe that all cosmetics must be microbiome friendly, at least within the next 5 to 10 years. in the future, we will probably see more and more customized products. We would think it's probably not possible to have like unique customized products, but based on groups that have a specific condition like acne or eczema, that we can see in this space there's customized products for specific groups. And then, yeah, it's important to save this biodiversity and to be aware of the microbiome. And it's important. So if you want to need more information, just drop me an email to neumann@microbiome-friendly.com, or if you need the presentation or the video. So with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. It's been a long talk, and yeah, happy to answer your questions.
It was a fantastic talk. We do have a couple of questions, but well, I just firstly wanted to thank you, Kristen, for your presentation. It was fantastic and enlightening. And I think one of the things to recognize is the fact that there are so many microbes on our skin, and you know what we have here in Australia is going to be different to what you have, you know, in a different, you know, zone, not just a zone, different season as well. And to your point of having the tests done, you know, in vitro versus in vivo, I think that highlights the fact that being able to test your product for that purpose, because if I make a formula for Australia here and it's going to go over to Europe in summer, it's not going to have the same effect, you know, to make sure that we have a standardized result. So I think that that was a great point. And I also want to highly stress to everyone, this is a private certifying, a private certification, and it's really not about saying that your product, exactly what Kristen said, it's not about saying my product has this probiotic. It's about really looking at your product holistically to get a microbiome-friendly certification. Am I reading that correctly, Kristen? It's not, you're not going to give a stamp to say it's perfect for all skin conditions. It's really not about that. It's about being able to substantiate a claim to say that your product is friendly to friendly to your skin.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So it means that it doesn't have any influence on the existing microbiome, because for that, of course, you have to tell the other story that most products off the shelf, they are having a an effect on a detrimental effect on the microbiome, because they're using too many preservatives in order to increase the shelf life and things like that, make it cheap. And this is the problem we have. So, and we need to be aware of that. And then we must be sure or make sure that the products we use are not doing this. They are not harming, not having an influence.
I'm going to start with the first question because Aaron, you asked this midway through. Do you want to read out your question to Kristen?
Sure, no worries. Kristen, considering we're all in the business of making personal care products, now, if you had a magic wand and you could influence how we formulated products from now on, what changes would you like us to make or keep top of mind while we're formulating?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I would try to keep every ingredient that you need to add as low as possible, but still get the activity you want. Also with active ingredients, of course, you want to have them in the product to have a certain activity, but also those can have antimicrobial properties. So I would try to reduce the concentration to a point where it is still fulfilling the function, but making it more microbiome friendly and milder. Same with preservatives and surfactants, and also essential oils, like everything that is antimicrobial, or fragrances, like ethanol and things like that. Zinc oxide, for example, it's also very antibacterial, but only in high concentration. So it's really, yeah, we have to be aware of that. And of course, the other
all of those zinc oxide sunscreens banned.
Well, I would say that.
I'm joking, everyone.
How dare you?
I'm joking, everyone.
No, I mean, still, I mean, you rather use a sunscreen than not using it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But and the other point, just what I actually learned when working in the cosmetics industry, to have high quality ingredients, because you know that they can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
avoid contaminations of other side products in the ingredients.
Are there
Young-
any other sorts
Oh,
of
sorry, go ahead.
natural products? Sorry, Rita.
No, go.
You've answered the first part to my second question. Are there any other types of natural products that can be beneficial?
So there are some products that have a fostering effect on the microbiota, but this is something we just don't understand now, because we don't know what happens if you increase the growth of certain bacteria on the skin, which can also be detrimental and create an imbalance. But what we can say, for example, there are certain ingredients like or probiotics that have a direct effect, or has an effect on the skin barrier, on inflammation and things like that. But we don't understand yet the mechanism of action on the microbiome.
Okay.
So, yeah. But this is often mixed up.
I guess that's to your
Okay.
point, Aaron. I mean, we have a lot of ingredient suppliers, as you would
I know.
you know, Kristen, over in Europe, and there's a few on our Zoom webinar at the moment, who obviously sell ingredients to help support that claim of, having a probiotic or a prebiotic or a postbiotic for your skin, and it helps in the microbiome of the skin. So I guess the answer for me would be, if you want to be able to pay ingredient suppliers, if you want to have your product microbiome friendly, go get it tested with Kristen to make sure that you're making that claim, which is an interesting one. So Yongli, you've got a question. I have a question on compliance using this certification for marketing purposes on cosmetic products. So the answer to that is
basically it was answered already.
yeah,
So
and you can use it. So you would have no issues whatsoever being able to claim that, as long as you can substantiate it. So as long as you've sent it off and you've got that seal of approval, there will be no compliance issues. It doesn't sit under therapeutic. It doesn't at all.
Yeah, I think it's one of those areas that I think, as Kristen mentioned, it's not necessarily regulated what is claimable and not claimable at this point in time.
Yeah,
We're just, I guess, being smart about it.
yeah,
and then obviously having the accreditation would just mean that you have that proof of evidence.
correct. Yeah,
Yes, have the data in the back, and we have registered our certification mark also in Australia and New Zealand, so it's safe to use.
there you go. Alpa, which ingredients should consumers be looking in a product label that are harmful for skin microbiome? Ooh, that's a tough question.
Yeah, because it's actually not easy to say, because
Yeah.
you don't see the concentrations on the INCI list. But of course, if you see like very highly antibacterial ingredients at the very beginning of an INCI list, then I would avoid this one. And if you see the like harmful or antibacterial ingredients in the very end, it might be fine. So also, but I would also try to look that the INCI lists are short, and also for I'm standing for hours in front of the shelves and looking at what do I put on my baby, and it's not easy. It's really
Marion asked, I'm using essential oils in my formulations. Is there a concentration you don't recommend to go higher? I'm formulating between 1.5 to 2% essential oil. Whew, that's a lot.
It really depends on which kind of oil it is. I mean, there are oils that have no effect at all, and you can use it like 100%. And then there's others that have a very strong antibacterial effect, and 0.1% is already enough. So, I mean, if you want, you can send me your
I was just about to say that. If
oils
anyone
that
has any
you-
specific formula questions, not to say that Kristen, I'm not promoting Kristen as supporting a formula, but she might have some, data that she's already looked at. So feel free to email Kristen. Andrew, are you seeing significant differences between topical microbiome across geographical regions or ethnic groups?
Yes, of course, there are differences, and It's also depending on the ratio of the microbes towards each other. It's changing, but still, even there, one can, like, we have an individual diversity, and even like, but you can see some patterns, but still we all have the same most abundant microbes on everyone's skin, like the Cutibacteria and Staphylococci, epidermidis, but they might be in different proportions. And then this 10 to 20% that is very highly diverse, that makes like those thousands of microbes, they are very different from person to person, but also within ethnic groups and geographics. Of course, the climate and the genetics have a strong influence as well.
So just I mean, this is a general formulating question. It's more around, do you see a difference for products targeting dry skin? When I say targeting dry skin, like ingredients or formulations that contain lots of lipids or ceramides, do you find that those formulations tend to behave better than others, or it's not necessarily that way?
It's not necessarily the case, but of course, those ingredients usually don't have an effect on the microbiota, so they're usually probably better than the ones that are more active on try to reduce sebum and things like that.
So acids, when you work with products that contain a lot of alpha hydroxy acids or beta hydroxy acids, how do that group of products, how do they sit within disturbing the microbiome of the skin?
Yeah, of course the acids are disturbing, but if the concentration is really low, it might still be within that range. So we have a tolerance that the microbes can be reduced by 30% or increased by 60%. So there we have a little window where it can move, but not too much. And of course, but very acidic products, like with a pH at 3.5 or something, then they will most likely not microbiome friendly as well. Yeah,
interesting. Does anyone else have any questions? I feel like I've got 50 million questions, but I don't want to bombard the... So I have another question, Kristen. So obviously, because you've been testing so many products, you would have like a matrix. Like, so just to go back, so I'm going to go back a few steps. For those of us who want to, I guess, send out formulations for you to test, what are the requirements that you need from us? So I've put my hand up and I said, I've got 5 formulations and I want to have them tested. What do you need from us to be able to, I guess, start the process?
Yeah, so actually we could start the process right away with you sending us the products and we do the testing in the laboratory. But what I will always recommend is that we have a look at the inkies beforehand and see if we see red flags, ideally also with the concentrations. And then we can like go back and forth and see if there's some change to be made or not, or which products maybe to test first and see how it goes, and then look at the other products. So because we of course want to avoid that the products are failing in the end. And yeah, but it's actually not so difficult. You have to send the products to our laboratory in Germany. It's working quite well all over the world. And within 3 weeks or so, you get the results and the report, the certification marks and everything. So, but we are in contact in between, and we have a certification contract to be signed. Yeah.
And what sample size do you usually request to have the testing done?
Yeah, we need 30 milliliters, but we are always requesting 3 times, like 3 items of 30 milliliters, just to be on the safe side to, if something gets spilled or breaks during the shipment, to have enough for testing.
And are there any products that you can't test for? So do they have to have water, or can you test oils? Is there a specific...
Well, we have done
I'm
a
so
lot of
sorry.
trial.
I personally have so many questions, so I hope everyone's okay. I'm just asking away.
It's really hard, like it's not easy to work with very solid formulas like waxes, but we
Yep.
can deal with it. We heat it up and then we kind of like, yeah, we deal with everything actually. And if we work with ingredients, of course, we need the information from the ingredient suppliers, how to solve it, in which reagent to work with it, and which concentration to test. But this is something we discuss with the client, and usually we would test the ingredient at a concentration that it is being used in the final product.
Because that would be my next question. So soap bars, obviously something that you're not, they can test. Cleansing balm, so the balm type of systems, they would be okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everything that we kind of more or less can pipe it.
Right. Yep.
And we have like possibilities to dilute in the laboratory in certain, either in water or PBS buffer or squalane, like it
Yep.
depends on if it's lipophilic or hydrophilic.
All right, Alpa, and I'm so sorry, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Can a simple litmus test of the products is effective in determining the pH level of the product is microbiome friendly? Just a broad assessment of the product before application.
What is a litmus test?
Can a simple litmus test of the product determine pH level of product? Do you mean litmus test as in those pH litmus papers? Is that yes, okay.
Okay. So, well, I mean, it's one part, like the pH can be like, if it's really high or very low, then it will be probably not so good for the microbiome friendliness, but it's way not enough to claim that it's microbiome friendly because there's a lot of other factors.
What's the
in the
ideal
product.
pH range, Kristen? Like, what is the ideal range that you say?
Yeah, between 4 and 9, ideally at 5.5. It's the same as the skin, more or less.
Yeah.
For the vagina, a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
But not above 9, I would say.
Yeah. And scalp is same?
It's the same, but for hair, the hair itself, we don't test on hair.
No, the
Like we don't
scalp,
test the scalp, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Are there any, okay, this is probably a little bit of a formula question, and I'm so sorry, but are there any no red flag preservatives? This is, I mean, no one's going to, you know, take you on this, but just so we have a few people on this webinar who are just starting out, and obviously for us formulators wanting to make sure that we don't waste people's time when we're wanting to formulate for microbe. It's okay, so if we're formulating for ACO, so when I have to formulate something for ACO, I know the ingredients I'm allowed to use, the ingredients I'm not allowed to use. Same as for vegan, obviously we know. So when it comes to microbiome friendly claim, to be able to support that claim, are there ingredients that you can immediately say, this is no, we know this is not going to be good, it's going to disrupt the microbiome?
No, it's not.
There
Sorry.
you go, everyone.
So it's really, as I said, about the concentration and to keep it as low as possible to make it still a safe product.
Yeah.
And even like we have tested phenoxyethanols or sodium benzoate, if it's at the right concentration, it almost has no influence. So, and we've even seen that like the natural or the alternative preservatives, because they have a low efficacy, you need to add them in higher concentrations, and then this might be a problem. So always with every preservative, you have to find a balance. Like what we can do is also like, we also have an R&D lab. So we can, besides certification, like work with you back and forth with prototypes and do just small tests and check if a certain prototype or does look okay or completely out of order.
Amazing. That's, I guess, one of the things and challenges that we have moving to a lot of the preservative boosters where they're being used at obviously 4% plus sometimes. And obviously a lot of them are acids. So it'd be interesting to see the rise.
Yeah, we also we test a lot of ingredients, and of course then we have surfactants and preservatives that have passed the test at a certain concentration, but still you don't know what happens if you put them all together in a product, because it can be completely different.
Definitely. It's 5:40. I'm very conscious of everyone's time, and I know some people have to organize dinner for their families or travel home from work or get to work in your case, Kristen. There are so many questions, but please, Kristen, could you just put up your last slide again, just so everyone can screenshot Kristen's email. I will also send it through in a group email to everyone, but if anyone has any pressing questions that they want to ask Kristen while she's on her way to work, please email her, and herself and her team will get back to you very, very quickly. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's fantastic to have Kristen join us from Germany. There's her email. Yep, I've just popped up on my screen for some reason. So thank you. Thanks for everyone for coming. I will be sending the, I'm going to stop the recording. I will be sending the recording to Kristen, and she'll be handing out the recording with the presentation to all who would like it. So good morning to everyone who's just joined, or good evening to everyone who's in our time zone. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope to see you in our next webinar, which we're doing in a few weeks' time around preservatives. So keep on socials, and I'll let you know when the new link will be. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you. It was nice to have you
so much.
here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.